welcome to the channel Get Rich. Today the company we are going to look into is Nippon India Asset Management Limited. So let's have a look at their business and then their financials and finally the valuations. So let's get started. So first about the business. So about the AMC business. So first, what is an AMC? AMC is an asset management company. So what do? So they get money from individual investors and institutional investors and they invest on behalf of them. So what do they get? So they get management fees. So the management fees are the main revenues for asset management companies. So this is the business they are doing. So let's have a look at mutual fund as an industry or asset management as an industry. So the graph you are seeing is mutual fund AUM as a percentage of GDP. So what is AUM? AUM is asset under management. So the total mutual fund asset under management in a country as a percentage of GDP. So if you look at India, the percentage of GDP rose from 5.6% in 2000 to 12.9% in 2018. However, the industry still has tremendous potential for growth, considering India is a large untapped market with the favorable demographics of a young population. So, the mutual fund penetration in India is 12.9% compared to other economies. It's very low. So, for example, the developing economies like South Africa or Brazil, they have around 50% and 60%, or the developed economies like UK, Canada, France, US, they have around 70%, 80%, and even 100% in US. So it's huge penetration in these countries, but then India it's under penetrated. Also, if we have a look at the world average, so that is around 60 to 62%. So India is having a huge headroom to grow in the mutual fund business. So in the next decade, the asset management business in India is going to boom like anything, because the GDP will grow and also the share of GDP also is going to grow. So there is a huge growth opportunity in this sector. Then if you have a look at the Indian household savings, Indian household savings is about 30% of GDP compared with the global average of 25%. Household savings have witnessed a steady shift from physical assets like gold and real estate to financial instruments like mutual funds in the recent years. Indeed, net financial savings have clocked 10% CAGR over the past 5 years compared to a mere 0.1% for physical assets. And the proportion of financial assets in total household savings now stands at over 40%. It's steadily growing, the financial assets of the Indian households. Then if you look at the Indian mutual fund industries, so it has been growing at a steady pace in the last decade and has grown from 4.91 lakh crore to 24.48 lakh crore, approximately 5 times increase in a span of 10 years. Further, during the year, industry saw a healthy growth of 15% in total folios, largely due to increasing awareness and higher retail participations. So it is one of the fastest growing industries in the country's financial service sector with 44 AMCs operating currently. The retail participation remained robust, having registered 18% year-on-year growth. Retail investors contributed 58% to the incremental industry assets. Equities accounted for most of these inflows during the year, reflecting the increasing risk appetite and confidence of the retail investors despite higher volatility. If you have to look at the unique mutual fund investors in the industry, so the Indian population is around 130 crores, but then if you look at the number of mutual fund investors, it's still below 2 crores. So we have huge opportunity to grow. So I believe that the mutual fund industry is still in the nascent stage and has huge opportunity for growth and expansion. Also, if you want to look at the other asset management companies in other countries, for example, as of Q3 2019, BlackRock has approximately $7 trillion in assets under management. The Vanguard Group manages approximately 5.6 trillion as of August 2019, while Charles Schwab, the mid-sized company, manages 3.7 trillion in assets as of Q2 2019. But then if you look at the total asset under management in India, it's just $350 billion. So there is a huge growth lies ahead. Then if you look at the market share of top 10 players, for example, top 10 asset management companies in India. So in 2016, their market share is around 80%. 2017 it increased to around 81%. 2018 it stayed around 81%. 2019 it almost went up to 83%. So 83% of market share is held by top 10 companies. So it's hugely consolidated and concentrated. So top 10 players dominate the market. So that's good for the top companies. So in order to invest money, they have to have the trust in the company, in the brand. So the top 10 companies are benefiting out of it. Then if you look at the key business segments, so before going into the key business segments, before the Nippon India Asset Management Company is a joint venture between Nippon Life and also Reliance Group. Then there is a problem because the Reliance Group was undergoing a difficult situation. Promoters are not trustworthy anymore because they have huge debt. So they want to sell their stake to Nippon Life. So Nippon Life acquired stake from Reliance. So now it's entirely the promoter is only Nippon Life. So that's good for the company because these are the concerns the industry was facing, and the investors are losing confidence in the company. So now they rebranded. It's into Nippon India Mutual Fund, Nippon India ETF, Nippon India Portfolio Management, and they also launched their new brand, Nippon India Mutual Fund, on 7th October 2019. So they changed everything in the all stores and locations and partner locations and everywhere. So they have done rebranding at over 300 plus branches and partner locations. So post rebranding, feedback from their customers and distributors has been positive and seen recovery across segments. Then if you have to look at the Nippon India Asset Management Company, so they are one of the largest asset management company in India with 24 years of track record. So as of December 2019, they have an asset under management of 3.1 trillion rupees. So out of that, mutual funds is almost 1.99 trillion rupees, and then the managed accounts, which is 1.03 billion. So what is managed account? They have a lot of pension accounts and other accounts they are managing. So it's 1.03 trillion rupees is in under managed accounts, and then they have some international business, so $68 billion, and then some advisory business of $48 billion. If you have to talk about the market share which the company holds, so they're the fifth largest AMC in India with AUM share of 8.3% market share as of financial year 2019. So they have 290 locations of their offices, and they have 1050 employees, 76,000 distributors, and they have around 11 million transactions in Q3 financial year 20, and they have around 9 million folios. So then let's have a look at their mutual fund AUM. So in April 2019, they have around 2.35 trillion rupees, and May 2019 2.15 trillion, and then June 2019 2.17 trillion. July it's steadily decreasing. From April to September it was steadily decreasing. Their asset under management is decreasing a lot. So this was the concern. There is a lot of uncertainties and people are worried they might go into default, and yeah, a lot of investors are taking money out of their AUM. So that's the main problem they were facing, and also the industry is not performing good now because it's a difficult time, economic downturn, but then their outflow is quite big. So in October they rebranded, and then it's slowly increasing. Now from October 1.98 trillion to 2.07 trillion. So it's a 5% increase from October to December. So that's a good sign because I think the sell-off is over and they are starting to get money back in their company. Then if you have a look at Nippon India Mutual Fund quarterly average asset under management, so in December 2018 they have around 38% of equity component, 35% of debt, 19% of liquid, and 7% of ETFs, and it's slowly increasing. And in December 2019 they have 44% of equities, 27% of debt, 16% of liquid, and 13% of ETFs. So their equity share is constantly increasing. That's a very good thing. Why it's a very good thing? Because they will get high management fees for equities and low management fees for debt funds. So it's always good to have equities, so they can have huge profitability. And their ETF share is also increasing quite nicely. It's increased from 7% to 13%. In India, ETF is quite small now, but it's going at a quite good pace. and they are having a huge market share in ETF business. So then let's have a look at the industry. So for example, in the whole industry, how it went out. So from 31% of equity asset in financial 16 to 42% of equity assets in financial 2019. So it increased in the entire industry. So Nippon India also did good. So the industry have around 42% of equity assets and they have around 44% of equity assets. So that's a good thing. They are better than the industry. Also, if you look at the ETF, industry is 5% and they have 13%. So it's also a good thing. They have a very good share in ETFs as well. Then if you look into the equity quarterly average asset under management, so in December 2018 they have around 1.02 trillion, and in December 2019 they have 1.11 trillion of assets under management in equity. So the equity assets grew by 9% year on year. Then if you look at the fixed income quarterly average asset under management, it was in December 2018 it was 1.29 trillion. It reduced huge reduction in debt and liquid funds. Why? Everyone in the industry, the debt and liquid funds are getting out, and because of fear, but it's a bit severe for Nippon India than any other asset management company, because there are a lot of concerns over the promoters and stuff like that. But then I think it will improve coming to the future. Now they have a strong promoter, and they are getting back their trust, so I think it will improve in the coming months. Then if you look at their SIPs, so their SIP count increased by 11% from 2.9 million to 3.3 million in December 2019. So this progress highlights their retail execution capabilities. So the annualized SIP book is over 10,000 crores from 3.3 million SIP accounts. So if you look at December 2016, they just had 4.12 billion is coming. It's a monthly SIP flows, and in December they have around 8.38 billion. So it's around 838 crores every month they are getting from SIPs. What does this tell? So we have to compare with something to know is it better or bad. So then let's have a look at the industry monthly SIP book. In March 2017 they have around 43 billion rupees, and in March 2018 it's around 71 billion, and in March 2019 it's 80 billion rupees or 8055 crores. They had around 838 crores, so they have more than 10% of market share in the SIP book. That's a very good thing. So also over 80% of the incremental SIPs have a tenure of over 5 years. So that's also a good thing. They have a predictable flow. They are getting around 10,000 crores every year from SIPs. That's a very good thing. And then this is a quarterly growth of SIPs. So from quarter 1 financial year 2018, so their SIP is growing nicely from 5.1 billion to around 8.4 million in quarter 3 financial year 2020. But then the other thing is the ticket size of the folio. So it's a rupees per folio, which was increasing from 2018 first quarter to second quarter 2019. It's around 2,924 rupees, and it is decreasing now to 2,539 rupees. So what does this mean? So for example, each folio, the average size, the rupees they are getting from each folio is around 2,540. It's reducing. That's a bad sign. But then they are having higher penetration in the remote areas, like beyond 30 cities. So their ticket size is small. So they believe the smaller ticket size have a stickier SIPs. So it's, we can see in two angles. So it's a good thing from one perspective and a bad thing from another perspective. Then if you look at the retail AUM, so how much they have as from retail investors. So it's 519 billion in December 2018, and in December 2019 it's around 546 million. So we have to compare that with industry as well. So retail AUM as a percentage of total AUM. So the industry, they have around 20% from retail investors. But then if you look at Nippon India Mutual Fund, they have around 26% from retail investors. They are doing very good job with retail investors. But if you look at the top players like HDFC 19%, Birla 19%, ICICI 15%, SBI 14%. Nippon India is doing very good with retail investors. They have around 26% retail AUM as a percentage of total AUM. That's a very good thing because they continue to be among the leaders in the beyond top 30 cities category. So let's have a look at their AEM location. So top 5 cities contribution. So what does this mean? How much money is contributed from these top 5 cities? So ICICI 71% of their money is coming from top 5 cities. SBI 69% of their money coming from top 5 cities. HDFC 66%. Industry as a whole is 62% of the money is coming from top 5 cities, only from top 5 cities. Nippon India, they have around 56% coming from top 5 cities. It's better than the industry and all the other players because they diversified beyond the 5 cities, because they just concentrated in top 5 cities. So they went beyond top 5 cities and are gaining money from other people as well. Then let's have a look at beyond 50 cities 15 cities contribution. So what does this mean? This is what are their share which is coming beyond the top 15 cities contribution. So Nippon India Mutual Fund has around 27%, industry average is 26%, SBI is 20%, HDFC 19%, ICICI is 15%. It's also very good because they are better than the industry and they are having high market share from beyond 15 cities. That's also a good thing. Then let's have a look at beyond 30 as a percentage of total average IM. So industry have 16% of the money is coming from beyond 30 cities. Reliance Nippon, they have around 19% coming from beyond 30. So that's also a good thing because they penetrated into the remote areas, so they can tap more than the industry. So that's the good thing because most of the retail investors are present in beyond 30 cities, so you can get high money from them. So let's have a look at the asset mix of top 30 and beyond 30 cities. So geography wise, 85% of the money is coming from top 30 cities. Only 15% is coming from beyond 30 cities. So why is it important? Why do we have to differentiate between top 30 and beyond 30? So in top 30, the equity percentage is 44% of equity and 56% of non-equity. Beyond 30 cities, 66% of equity and 34% of non-equity. So if you go beyond 30 cities, you can get high share of equity investment. So that's good for the company. That will reflect into their profitability. That's a one good thing. And also you can tap money from other investors, and they have a huge potential beyond 30 cities. So then let's have a look at their distributors. So how are they getting their money? So first, they have 600 new distributors in Q3 financial 20. Their total distributor base is around 76,000. So who are their distributors? So they have banks, for example, Citibank, Dash Bank, ICICI Bank, HDFC Bank. So they have 74 banks. And the national distributors, they have around 94, like for example, Carby, HDFC Securities, Bajaj Capital. And they also have alternate, like including PSU banks, they have RBL Bank, Bank of India and other things, and 75,600 plus independent financial advisors. So who are the independent financial advisors? These are financial advisors who get money from retail people and invest in the mutual fund. That's a good thing at one side, and the other side we have to look at the concentration, how much they are getting it from the each persons. So then if you look at the percentage, they get 20% from national distributors, 25% from banking distributors, 55% from independent financial advisors. So no single distributor contributes more than 5.3% of asset under management. And then if we look at the money coming from these advisors, so June 2019 it's around 622 billion, and in December 2019 it's around 585 billion. So how much of their money is digitally sourced? For example, now a lot of people are going to digital. So how much percentage is contributing? So digital contribution to total Nippon India Mutual Fund business transactions at over 40%. In financial 2018 to 19, they have around 0.8 million digital purchases, and financial 2019 to 20, they have around 1.1 million digital purchases. It's increased by 38%. That's also a good thing. They also have partnered with Google to launch voice-based financial transaction, which is a first of its kind in the industry. So they are investing a lot into digital ecosystem. That's also a good thing for the future. Then let's have a look at their ETFs. They are the only AMC in India with more than 18 years track record in managing ETFs. They have highest investor folios in industry. So about 42% market share of ETF folios as on December 2019. They have about 76% of market share in ETF volumes on the NSE and BSE. They have 16% total market share. So they have largest bucket of 18 ETFs in the industry across equities, debts, and commodity gold. So they have successfully launched 6 tranches of CPSE ETF as a part of Government of India divestment strategy. They launched Nifty 50 ETF in Australia in June 2019. So they are the second largest ETF player with a market share of 16% with a AUM of 264 billion. If we exclude the EPFO allocation, which goes to two PSU owned mutual funds, they would be the largest ETF player in the country. And then if we look at the offshore AUM, they have also business from other countries. They have advisory business of 48 billion rupees and managed account of 68 billion. So in total, they have around 116 billion rupees managed from other countries. So they have launched UCITS India Fixed Income Fund, domiciled out of Dublin. The fund is expected to target Asian and European investors for both retail and institutional clients. Additionally, they will continue to work closely with Nippon Life Insurance to leverage their global tie-ups for attracting higher flows from international investors. If you look at the global offices, they have an office in Singapore, in Mauritius, in Dubai. So they are expanding. They are expanding globally. Now let's have a look at cost to income ratio. So they have around 69.2% cost to income ratio in first quarter financial year 2018, and then now it's around 51.5% in quarter 3 financial year 20. That's a good thing. They reduce the cost to income ratio. This is also a very good thing. And then let's have a look at their growth opportunities. What are their growth opportunities? So they are expanding their business to many countries. For example, they are expanding to Singapore, Australia, Thailand, Japan, South Korea, UK, France, Spain, Italy. So they are diversifying, they are expanding to a lot of countries. Now they have a global player, Nippon Life. They have strong tie-up with many global companies, and they can leverage that, and then they can expand into other countries. Before, it's a Reliance mutual fund, and it's now they rebranded into Nippon India mutual fund because the trust of the Reliance was going down. Now they rebranded it with a strong parent company, so it's a very good thing. So I see trust is coming back into this Nippon India mutual fund. And then, so if you look at the Nippon Life, they have domestic insurance business, they have several companies, and they have asset management business. They have also present in several countries, and they have overseas insurance business as well. They are a very strong company. So if we look at the market share of Nippon Life in Japan, Nippon Life have 19.5% market share. Deutsche Life, it's 14.1%. They have another company 9.2%, another company 8.1%, another company 7.1%. They're a huge player in Japan. They're a global player. Huge backing from an MNC company. That's a very good thing for Nippon India Asset Management. So over 170 institutional investors activated during the quarter, because the trust is coming back. A lot of institutional investors is coming back to the mutual fund, so they will going to get back the lost market share in the industry. So I feel confident they will grow quite bigger, but then the trust in retail investors has to improve, because the retail investors trust is not so easy to gain it. So yeah, it should improve. So we have to look how it pans out in the future quarters. Let's have a look at their income statement. So their sales in March 2013 is 700 crores, and it increased to around 1,600 crores, and now it's around 1,200 crores. And their net profit, it's around 200 crores in March 2013, and currently it's around 550 crores. So they are growing quite nicely. They are growing at a CAGR of around 15% in bottom line. So they have a huge dividend payout ratio. If you look at the net profit, it's increasing quite nicely. In financial year 20, it was around 545 crores, and they are projected it to grow at the same pace. And if you look at the dividend payout, so they have around 2.98 billion, 2.98 billion, 4.42 billion, and 4.48 billion. So they are paying out dividends to shareholders. That's a good thing. If you look at the balance sheet, so they have a total assets of 1,500 crores in March 2013, and currently it's around 2,860 crores. why it's not growing much? Because they are giving out the money to the shareholders. They are giving huge payout ratio, dividend payout ratio around 70%, 80%. So they are giving out money back to the investors or shareholders. Why this is a good business? Because they don't have any fixed cost. They can scale very high, because for example, if they are managing 3 trillion or 30 trillion or 300 trillion, they don't need much investment or fixed asset or many people to manage this business, because they can easily scale up. So they have a huge cash flow. So that's a very very good thing. So they are paying out large to shareholders. That's a very good thing. That's why these business have higher PEs compared to other business. Let's talk that into the in the valuation section. If you look at the ROE, return on equity, so they have around 27% in financial 2015, and it's reduced to 19%. I think it's going to improve, and the trend is going to reverse. It's almost going to reverse. In financial 19 it's 19%, and now it's almost 20%, and it's going to go back. So that's a good thing. If you look at the shareholding pattern, so the holding of the promoter, it's around 78% in the March 2019, and now it's around 75.92%. It's wholly owned by Nippon Life, so that's a very good thing. So FIA plus DIA holding, it's around 9.77% in March 2019, and it went up quite nicely to 11.98%. That's also a good thing. FIA DIA they are buying, so that's a good thing. Okay, let's have a look at the valuation. So if you look at the PE of Nippon India, so it was trading at around 40 PE once upon a time, and it went down to 10 PE, and currently I think it is trading at around 26 or 27 PE. So that's not so cheap, but then still I feel there is some value. So if you project the net profit to the next 3 years, they have around 457 crores in financial 2018, 487 crores in financial 2019, and 604 crores in financial 2020, 680 crores in 2021, 796 crores in 2022, 915 crores in 2023. So their net profit growth, I'm projecting 13% in 2021, 17% in 2022, and 15% in 2020. So they are currently trading at a PE of 27. With the current valuation, the price target for 1 year is 300 rupees, 2 year 351 rupees, 3 year 404 rupees. So the price cumulative growth is 21% for 1 year, 42% for 2 year, and 63% for 3 year. But then I feel for the asset management companies and this company, I feel they are going to have a higher PE than the current valuation. So I am estimating the price target with 32 PE. So for 1 year, I am estimating 356 rupees, 2 year 416 rupees, 3 year 479 rupees. So the price cumulative growth of 44% in 1 year, 68% in 2 year, and 94% in 3 year. Note that they already reached all-time high of 450 rupees, doubling money in 3 years. That's a good thing. I feel confident in the company because Nippon Life is a huge MNC company with a strong parent backing. They are going to do well, I feel. But then I feel it's bottoming out, and they are going to get market share back, and they are going to gain trust back from the retail investors as well. But we have to look how it comes out in the future quarter. That's a huge risk, because the investor confidence is the main thing. So we have to have a look at that in the coming quarters. But then I feel it's a good company to buy for the long term. As a AMC business as a whole, I'm quite bullish for the next 10 years. But do your due diligence before buying any stock. So thank you for watching. Have a nice day. If you like the video, like, share, and subscribe and comment. So thank you for watching. Have a nice day.